A few years ago, after a long time of the Predator franchise spewing out mediocrity and in general failing to live up to the quality the original was made with, a film called Prey was released, focusing on the idea of a predator hunting not in the present day like the previous films or in the far future like in the comic books, but in the past, showing a predator hunting Native American warriors in North America. And I think most people can agree that it was a step in the right direction and helped to open the door to the idea of predators hunting down different historical warriors and giving us different glimpses of honor and culture. Well, Predator Killer of Killers is that exact premise, showing predators hunting down different warriors not only in different parts of the earth, but in different time periods, with us going from Viking era Scandinavia to feudal Japan to World War II era US Navy. The first chapter of the film focuses on Ursa, a Viking warrior who was forced to kill her father as a young girl by a warlord named Zoran, and so has been spending decades training to hunt him down and take revenge, with the opening showing her launching an assault against an outpost and finding Zoran's location. The second fight scene does have some problems however, such as the wooden shields instantly slicing off people's limbs, a middle-aged female is somehow able to outperform dozens of men in their prime who have better protection, and there's one point where Ursa gets pinned down and surrounded on all sides, yet no one manages to stab her, and then one of her crew comes out of nowhere and just saves her. They've definitely tried to make it stylish, this big one-shot action scene, but when you think about it for a second, a lot of the stuff in it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Ursa's story is a classic revenge story, and as such she goes through all of this effort only to get her to lose everyone in the process, including her son, and she gets taken by the Predator. Despite his limited appearance, I do like what they do with the bad guy. You think they're going to do the classic, the villain doesn't remember who the protagonist is shtick, acting like she's just one of the many victims that came before him, but then it turns out that the villain does remember Ursa and the pain he caused her, and in fact he uses her culture and traditions to call her a coward and that she dishonored her father, mentally hurting her and making her unable to land the killing blow and claim her revenge, which I did think was a nice little subversion. The fight with the Predator and the Predator itself is a bit hit and miss with me. On the one hand, I like how the Predator manages to kill the crew in less than a minute, just reminding us how deadly predators are. It was cool to see some unique tech we hadn't seen before in the form of a prosthetic hand, one that has multiple different functions from being a mace to being some sort of sonic weapon, and see her having to use her wits and the ice to defeat it was pretty cool. On the other hand, I'm not a massive fan of the Predator design, it gives me PTSD flashbacks to the 2018 movie. Ursa seems to survive a lot more damage than everyone else, and she is thrown into sub-zero temperature water twice and is completely fine afterwards. I mean, after the first time, she probably should have been suffering from severe hypothermia that put her out of the fight, but the second time, spending minutes fighting in this icy cold water, she really should have been dead. Never mind live long enough to get out, hold her dying son, and then get captured and imprisoned. On to the next chapter in feudal Japan, we see Kenji and Kiyoshi, two sons of a warlord. We see a montage of the two growing up, until one day their father pits them against each other, seeing who will claim his mantle once he's dead. Kenji refuses to fight his brother, but Kiyoshi attacks him when he's not expecting it, defeating him and claiming his right to rule, with Kenji going on the run, bitter over the fact that his brother betrayed him for a title. Decades later, after the father dies and Kiyoshi becomes the new lord, Kenji decides to infiltrate the castle and challenge him for his betrayal all those years ago. Again, I liked most of it, but there's a few things I didn't. For instance, I really do enjoy seeing him infiltrate the castle, but the start of it is really weird. He somehow manages to steer a hollow log right into a guy pissing in the river and then knock him out. Because as we all know, hollow logs are notoriously well known for their accurate steering. But despite that, I do like it for the most part, especially the fact that despite plenty of training and planning, things don't always go so smoothly, such as when he manages to stop a bell tower from being run, only to be spotted by a completely different bell tower and everyone gets alerted to what's going on anyways. I did really enjoy the fight between the two brothers. They don't bother to talk to each other or try and reason, they both know why this is happening and accept it. The different weapons and fighting styles were also nice to watch, and despite Kenji clearly having more resources and the upper hand in the fight, Kiyoshi manages to distract and outmaneuver him long enough to get into the samurai armor and make things a bit more even. So after a long fight, Kenji wins, and despite attempting to spare him, Kiyoshi seems to accidentally fall to his death. With the fight now over, the Predator, which we saw glimpses of throughout this chapter, decides that Kenji is a worthy opponent and confronts him. The Predator chases Kenji, slaughtering guards along the way, before Kenji manages to jump into the river surrounding the castle, the river having also allowed Kiyoshi to survive his fall as well. The two brothers then team up to kill the Predator, which after a long battle they do, although Kiyoshi dies from his injuries, and we cut to Kenji on the ship, also enslaved. I really liked this fight scene. We see Kenji constantly using his tricks just to give him an edge over the camouflage Predator, as well as watching the Predator's techniques and weaponry and figuring out how to use its own weapons against it. The fighting is very fluid, and I really like the somber tone, with this being the first time we hear the brothers speak to each other this entire chapter, right before Kiyoshi dies. The only thing I'm not a massive fan of is the fact that the Predator goes out of its way and kills fleeing / surrendering enemies. Which, again, I don't know if these are supposed to be the classic Predators or more roguelike ones that we've seen in different media. But I was really hoping we'd get the classic Predators in this, ones that wouldn't do this kind of thing. But besides that, I did really enjoy this entire chase and the fight scene. We then cut to 1941, where we see John Torres, a car mechanic who is drafted into the army after the US joins World War II, becoming a plane mechanic and fighter pilot. As he's repairing his plane, a fellow pilot crash lands on the aircraft carrier, having been brought down by a strange aircraft with alien weaponry. He quickly gets in his plane to try and get the warning out to the other pilots, who are currently engaged with Axis fighters. They win the battle and Torres catches up to them, but is unable to warn them properly before the Predator shows up, killing everyone except Torres and Vandy, his commanding officer. After figuring out that the Predator and its weapons are attracted to heat, the two climb up into the atmosphere to cool off their planes, although Vandy keeps his engine on to attract himself while Torres' engine cools down, dying in the process. Torres manages to disappear off the thermals and then gets behind the ship before activating his engines again, which allows him to damage the ship and lead a chase throughout the Axis territory. He leads the Predator into a big navy battle where the heavy artillery severely damages the ship and allows him to outsmart it with its own weapons, killing it. This chapter offers us a really great look at applying the same principles of Predator fight scenes to aerial combat. I didn't even really think you could make a great Predator fight scene where the Predator is in a vehicle, but apparently you can, and it was a really superb thing to watch. I really enjoy how creative this chapter is. So after defeating the Predator, Torres goes back home and works in his father's garage, but a Predator ship then arrives and abducts him, with him having to be cryogenically frozen before being enslaved, making him the third prisoner brought aboard the ship. On to the final chapter now, and we see the three have been brought to a big arena, with the Predator Warlord arriving and, through a translation device on their collars, informs them that they will fight each other to the death, and then the winner will fight him. While Torres and Kenji try and team up, Ursa tries to kill the two of them. Torres manages to shoot her axe and get her to briefly stop, only to be swallowed by a creature let loose in the arena. Ursa and Kenji fight the beast from the outside, while Torres slices it from the inside, with the three warriors killing the beast. The beast is cleared out of the arena, with Torres still inside it, while Ursa continues her fight with Kenji. But when Kenji refuses to fight back, the warlord tries to detonate the collars. Torres manages to disable them and pilot a hoverbike, taking the three of them to the warlord's ship. While Torres tries to get the ship ready so they can escape, the duo fight the warlord. The warlord eventually manages to defeat them, but Torres activates the ship, flinging him away. The duo manage to board the ship, but Kenji loses his arm in the process of protecting Ursa. A harpoon is then fired into the ship before it can escape, with Ursa choosing to stay behind to disable the harpoon so the other two can escape. The warlord sends his clan to hunt the two down, and Ursa is put back into cryogenic freezing, with us seeing that Naru, the main character from Prey, has also been captured and frozen. I think this chapter is a decent conclusion to the film, with some nice dynamics between the characters, as well as showing us more traditions and culture to the Predators. There are a few things I don't like about it though. I think the bomb collars don't really match up with the Predator's sense of honor, being a tool that immediately puts them at a disadvantage. They're surrounded on all sides anyways. I don't think they needed these collars if they wanted to remove them from the tournament. I also think it's a bit of a cop-out to give Torres the flintlock pistol. I understand it's a reference to the second film and Prey, but I don't understand how they managed to get a sword and a war axe from the appropriate eras to give to the other two contenders, but somehow they can't get a pistol from the 1940s, instead having to give him a 300-year-old pistol instead for no reason whatsoever. There was a few instances of the protagonists being thrown around and instead of getting attacked properly, a fight scene trope I think most of us hate to see. And my final complaint would be that Kenji gets his arm sliced off, and then like 30 seconds later doesn't seem to be in any pain and he doesn't die. or at least pass out from the blood loss, despite no medical attention being given to him. But overall, I did enjoy the film as a whole. I like the aesthetics of each chapter. You can instantly recognize the setting by the armor, the boats, the vehicles, the weapons, the dialogue. It's very aesthetically pleasing. I do overall like the animation as well. There's a few times when things look a bit dodgy, but for the most part it was fluid enough and quite detailed, giving us some great looking shots and engaging fight scenes. It also doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the gore. The first 5 minutes of the film shows us a man slowly getting bisected while hanging from a tree, with his organs spilling out in nice detail, and it really does only get more graphic from there. I did like the personality of the characters, seeing all these different cultures and stories and how they all merge at the end. I think it was worth the build up. I will say, however, that the main thing that bugs me is how overpowered Ursa is. The second fight scene with her is just ridiculous at times, and I think she survives far longer than she should have considering the environment she was in. The music score was pretty good, with the classic Predator theme kicking in just to remind you how fucked these guys are from time to time. I will say, I do think they missed with most of the Predator designs. I like the Japan one, and I guess the pilot one has more of a sci-fi look, and that makes sense because it's not fighting in person and so requires less of a warrior aesthetic. But the other Predators lean a bit too far into appearing monstrous, making them like 10 feet tall and very bulky on the top. Kinda detracts from the sneaky camouflage stick they've got going for themselves. But I will say that overall it was an enjoyable watch. I hope they kinda keep doing this anthology film style. I think it's a good way to flesh out the universe and give us different narratives without having to make this massive interconnected story. It's not very long, it's only about an hour and 20 minutes, so it's a pretty decent film to just pass some time with, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. I also have a Twitter and occasionally I do live streams. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.